everybody, and welcome to the New Earth Co-Creators podcast. I'm so excited to be back. Yay! Did you
Hey!
I guess we all were kind of on vacation there.
Yes, but very happy to be here, and very happy, of course, to see both my lovely, beautiful soul sister and brother here to impart whatever we're imparting today. Some may call it wisdom, some may call it comedy. Some might even call it conspiracy. Who knows? Anyway, Isabel, it's lovely to see you. Peter, it's lovely to see you. Happy Monday, or whatever day it might be for anybody who's tuning in. How are we?
Good. I don't know. The full moon yesterday, it's always something. But or no, what it's Saturday? Saturday, right? Today's Monday, yeah. It always brings up a bunch of stuff. I can feel like I am moving through a lot of things right now, a lot of things that I need to let go of, a lot of things that I have to stop caring about, and a lot of new things that are evolving and coming back up. So it's been interesting these days. From upset, anger to complete peace and all of it in between. And it's like, give me a direction of where this is going. And everyone else just close your mouth.
Yeah, I think I could resonate with that as well. I'm feeling up and down and then around and about. And there's so many things happening that are amazing and so many things happening that are atrocious. Poor little cat is a bit stressed out as well, so I'll look after the cat. So yeah, I feel the same way, but I feel when I do tune into my higher vibration, I feel amazing still. Even though with all this mess around me, I can still tune in to a higher vibration and then look at it and go, well, we really do need to do something about this mess that we're living in. But I feel when we all start to tune in to ourselves and to each other a little bit more and actually start to listen to each other, I think all this will actually start to go away. I'm seeing green shoots all over the place that are looking really good.
Yeah.
But the overarching thing has been really some of the things that I've been researching recently. You think, wow, they're really getting away with that. And that's what I feel, yeah, they are at the moment. And that's got to stop as far as I'm concerned. So, but that's how I'm feeling, sort of this I'm on the roller coaster ride. And I'm enjoying it, and I'm feeling sometimes white knuckled, sometimes big smiley. So.
I like that.
Forced to put your hands in the air and just go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just there you go. Woo!
That was in the newspaper.
Not always what you want to do, especially going over those really high. You don't really want to go, yay! It's like sheer terror. But anyway, it was interesting. I mean, I'm feeling very much in the same pocket. It's weird. There's a lot going on. Very interesting timing in my world personally, and I'm embracing it and just going for it because why not? And at the same time, it's like all this light is shining and all the shadows. The brighter the light, the darker the shadows, I guess, right? So, that's just one doesn't exist without the other, or so we've been told. I don't know if I've always believed that. It's like people say, well, you can't get to pleasure without pain. I'm like, really? Is that really what's required? We have to suffer in order to understand what it means to be grateful. Like, is that really what we need as we evolve? Is that so necessary? And it would seem like there's a lot of stuff, just a lot of undercurrent going on, and you can feel it and sense it. And as much as I'm putting myself out in the world, I'm also not putting myself out of the world. It's such a weird sort of dichotomy. On the one hand, I'm being very present when I'm there, and on the other hand, when I'm not needing to be there, I'm just kind of sitting back and being quite quiet.
Yeah,
which
me too.
Is interesting. And then Peter, we talked for a few minutes before we start this, you mentioned something that's been happening in the UK now. And we talk about many things on this podcast. So I guess we should talk about this because I think people deserve to know. So please tell us what we'll tell everybody now what you just told us.
Well, I just come out been doing some research, and this video came up, and I've looked at the government website myself. It's actually a sort of element of the government called the CDU, the Counter Disinformation Unit. So it's a Counter Disinformation Unit, and I found it's very Orwellian. What a title in itself. That sums up everything, really. But so what is counter disinformation? So what is disinformation? What is misinformation? They've got all these different terms for it now. They've got conspiracy theorists and all this kind of business. Nobody knows what anybody means anymore when they're actually speaking about all this stuff. And I've found lots of people to be scared of being labeled a conspiracy theorist as well, which I found amazing. But going through this new notice is a notice from the government, which you really, if you look at your law, you don't really have to take, you don't really have to take sort of anything from a notice, but we do. So therefore it turns into an act, which we have to act out, which is all crazy anyway. But it says in that notice that philosophies that don't align with the UK government's narrative now are going to be disinformation. So therefore that disinformation can put you under the scrutiny of this institution, whatever they're called, and therefore you can be arrested for your philosophical belief that doesn't fit into the government narrative. And to me, I love the Tao philosophy because I think that came out from India into Southeast Asia, and that really embraced the feminine sort of attribute of the yin and yang, the immersing of yourself from male into female and getting that sort of centeredness. I love that philosophy, but I do love the Indian Vedic scripts as well. I do read that a lot. And in what I've seen is that they talk about this being the Kali Yuga. So anything that's built up, and it's really specific, and it's really quite incredible to see when you read it and then you look at what's happening today. It virtually is a blueprint for them, what they're doing, the darker side of it, which is, I find, incredible. But they say this is the age of hypocrisy and deceit, hypocrisy and deceit, which is what Bob Marley sang all about. So what they're saying is like, it's not necessary, it's Kali, but Kali bringing this energy up so that you can see yourself and realize you don't want any part of that. That's really the essence of it. And you're more connecting to your super soul inside of you, which is what your connection is to the universe. But you have your conditioned soul in there that's learning. And therefore, which I have done, I've spoken quite eloquently about this to my politician, and he was quite interested. But all of a sudden, this comes up, and there's a Vedic community center that I go and teach at now. I'm going to bring this up to them. So now, if any of you believe this philosophy that we're living in the Kali Yuga and that the government is a negative entity, you could be up for scrutiny, for arrest, for harassment from the government, from the state. And to me, this is completely insane. It's because there's no room for argument anymore. There's no room for debate or discussion. And anything that I've said, I'm well capable of actually having a conversation with it and changing my viewpoint on it, which is important, because if someone's convincing to me and they're coming from my heart, I will say, okay, I get that. But this is unbelievable change and overreach of a government to come into people's lives and say, your philosophy is wrong. We're going to put you into a re-education camp. This I thought George Orwell and 1984 and the Brave New World, I thought they were just books. But to me, it's almost like a blueprint of what's being rolled out at the moment. And this CDU is just another step closer to you not being able to say anything outside of the government jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah. And we see something not that dissimilar here in the US, because we have a Disinformation Act that's also been put in place. Although if you want to find anything about it, very hard to do. very hard to do. So it's like it was here for 5 minutes and suddenly it just sort of vanished. And people were saying, well, how do you define disinformation, misinformation? The conversations were silenced very quickly. And it's just sitting here. In Canada, I know, Isabel, you said it seems like Canada is not far behind. I think Canada may already
No.
be there, because government has total control over everything there now. And the media is licensed by the government now. It has to be licensed by the government.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so we are moving into this very strange, multiple dimensional reality where these things do exist in some realms. I don't believe they exist in all by any stretch because there's multiple realities happening. But without getting too spiritual on that subject right now, I think that it's very important to acknowledge that as much as we don't want to believe these things, that we can't just isolate our own self from the world and say, okay, not mine. That's was not my dishes, not my sink, whatever, not my sink, not my dishes, whatever that saying is. It's like we are not, even though the three of us here may choose to support a totally different reality and hold that to the light, which is why I think we all have those moments. You say you feel really high and really good and really within the self and grounded. I feel very grounded these days and very at peace, with all of this going on. At the same time, this awareness, this conversation does require taking place, because what's happening systematically is it's like we're moving into this really interesting space. This is a variable that is possible, and that is that, okay, they're going to try to put everything into a container, and if you do not fit in that container, then you are a problem, right? And therefore you need to be taken someplace else, right? And I'm saying you, and I'm saying it intentionally because I really want people to feel like, well, what do you mean me? What do you mean? I could say one, I could say we, I could say, but I am saying you for this moment, because I think that that's as much a possibility right now as anything. And when you have something as general as a philosophy, like, if they were doing this religiously, like if it was under the guise of religion, people would be up in arms, because I guess they're so used to it, though religion's done it for a long time. But still,
Yeah.
if one religion was rising up right now and saying every other religion is wrong and therefore you can be arrested if you believe it. Now we're talking about the UK, we're talking about the Western world. Other countries, this may still exist, right? But here it doesn't. If they were trying to implement it that way, there would be an uprising. But instead of it being anything specific, it's a philosophy. That's like saying if you have the wrong idea, we can arrest you.
Yeah. But you see that with everything that's going on right now. We're talking all about, the talking point of love, unity, equality, and yada, 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 which are
That may
all
not fit
just
with the
terms.
government's agenda.
Yeah.
But that is the box that they're putting it on. Like, this is like, it's all under the disguise of love and unity and equality, and we're one. And it's interesting how those positive words are being used really for the narrative of the darkness. Really, I keep saying, if we implement something for one group of people, and if we were to implement the same thing for another group of people, and you get upset about that, then it's not about equality. Then it's about rebellion and fairness and justice that hasn't even, been around for hundreds of years. I actually watched an interview or a video of someone. She's like, yes, if you didn't know, by the way, being on time is white supremacy.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, are you just using everything as an excuse? That again, but that is the philosophy that we're going with. It's almost like we're just I can't even find the right words for what's going on, and that's why it's so hard for me to even put myself out there and to actually say something, because I'm like naturally, organically sitting always in the middle, and I see both. I'm like, are you guys really not realizing it, that no matter, because I know your hearts are in the right place, I get it, I understand where you're coming from, but the way it is being initiated is a very slow death. It's like putting the frog in boiling water, right? Like slowly increasing the temperature. And people don't realize it just because it says love and unity and equality, where it's a very slippery slope, and it goes right in with the philosophy, right? It's all about philosophy, our thoughts, our belief system, and what is wrong and what is right, and who is the government actually? Who are the people and what do they believe? Now, I would love to see the entire list of everyone involved so I can understand their philosophy so that I don't step outside line. Who is making the guidelines for a philosophy, for a thought process, right? How is that making sense? Like, really, like, just like you said, the hypocrisy is incredible. But so many people are just, pulling the blankets over their eyes, and like, in my heart, I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. And everyone else who doesn't, and who doesn't agree, and who doesn't, make a loud stand for everyone to see, is not part of that, who's not part of that philosophy that is aligned with the government. And that's a very, very scary place to be in if one knows history. And that is me speaking as a German.
Male, pale, and stale. This is the new woke for people who are speaking outside the mainstream. They call them male, pale, and stale, which I find hilarious, but I'm sure some people find that very offensive. Why is it always pale, white-skinned people that are always causing the problems? It's I don't know. It's like an inverted racism that's happening, and
Yes.
I go into ethnic minority. I don't see human beings for their color, actually. And when I see them as a being. There's a being. If it's like looking at a cat or a dog to me, it's like there's a being there. There's a human being.
Yeah.
And until they start to have this chip on the shoulder, and then this chip started to speak louder than the mouth in front of me, I see, oh, you've got a chip, and that's kind of it kind of makes me feel like, yeah, that is a bit of a what's happened to you in your DNA, your lineage, maybe like the British going over to India and completely messing their country up, and they might have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. That chip starts to speak, so that puts them into an archetype, and I hate even doing that because there's a human being in front of me, but they're talking from something that's damaged inside of them rather than talking from their heart. And that's what I find really strange about all of this, because nobody's sitting down and saying, is that really me thinking that? I remember when the Iraq war came along, I'll be totally honest with you, I was really sucked into 9/11, and I thought, great, they're coming, we're going to war, we're going to sort these people out. And then I sat and with myself, really thought deeply about it. I can't stand war. I think war is the most disgusting thing. How did I get sucked into all that hype, which made me step back and now look at anything that happens really closely to say, where's the story coming from? Where's the narrative? Who's really behind this? What's really happening behind the scenes? And who is gaining? Who's gaining from this?
Who is making
and that made
the
me
money
realize,
with it?
yeah, I want to live in peace. All of that whole thing, that horrendous thing that happened with 9/11, going all the way through that wars and destruction of the Middle East, it made me look at myself and go, I don't want this. I don't want this in the world. I don't want this for myself. And that made me realize, what do I want? I want to meet good people. I want to be around good people. If I have a bad day, I want people to say, yeah, Peter's having a bad day, but not me for it for the rest of my life. Just to accept that, yeah, I'm a human being too. And I think that's where we need to start to embrace each other from the heart, understand our physical nature, but also understand our spiritual nature. Yeah. And try and bring that into humanity. I really do believe that's what we're here to do. I think that's what we're doing with these conversations, is trying to work out where this spectrum is. Yeah.
As a visionary, often we are able to see a little bit further ahead than what most people are able to see. Now we're starting out with, if your philosophy doesn't align with the government, we can do things to you that you may not like, right? Philosophy is a very broad title for belief for heart issues. That means spirituality. So eventually you will start to see more and more of this is all new age. This is new age, and this is new age, and everything new age is now prohibited. It takes away that spiritual connection. And let me ask you this, or not ask you, but here's what I'm seeing, and I hope I am wrong. I really do hope it. But when we take spirituality out of all of this, we all become robots. Here's the transhumanism that comes into place, call it conspiracy theory or not. But if you look at the 1+1+1 that got us to where we're at now, you can add to that and you can see where this is going. Because as soon as spirituality is taken out of the equation, we no longer operate from the heart. We operate from the mind, which is programmed, indoctrinated, and can be propagated.
I think what you're saying is a really interesting distinction, because I don't see that spirituality is being taken out of the equation. If anything, I actually feel that spirituality is rising up.
And that's why they're adding all of that in, because they're afraid of that. Because as soon as people realize we are spiritual beings, we have the power. Those who want to, narrow it down, who want to control that part, that sense of freedom that you have being a spiritual person, right? Being. And that's where they come, and slowly they will put things into place, very slowly.
Well, they've been doing it for 50, 60, 80 years
Yeah.
now. I mean, we didn't get here overnight, for sure. However, I really, maybe it's just the way I choose to see it, but what I find interesting is on corporate stages now, when people speak, they talk about soul, they talk about spirituality, they talk about things that they could never have said 5 years ago. Like, it's become very accepted. There's a lot that's happening. So I don't really go to the place of like, okay, they're going to lock spirituality out. What I think is the opposite, which could end up containing spirituality. Well, I feel they're trying to lock the heart out. They're trying to lock the emotion out. They're trying to lock the feeling out and keep it in angst and keep it in anger, because I don't think they care about spirituality at this moment in time. What they care about is keeping people at odds with each other. As long as people are at odds with each other, spirituality is not a threat. So, that's the thing. As long as people argue and are at odds, and the reverse racism that's come in, the hatred that's been propagated, the fear that's out there, as long as they can cultivate at that level, they don't have to come in at quite that literal level. That's taking it to such a literal place that they would actually have to expose themselves to a degree where I believe they would not be willing to expose themselves. That's very much the information that I get anyway around all of this. I think it's the heart that they're attempting to sabotage as much as possible, because if our healing nature is sabotaged, then our spiritual connection is sabotaged.
Exactly that.
Right.
And that's how
I don't think they're doing it.
Spirituality.
Yeah, I don't think that they're coming at it from that perspective. I don't actually really believe that people that are that high in the shadow with exception, there's a couple I absolutely believe know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I don't believe it's more than a handful of beings on this planet at this moment in time that are really, really awake to what it is that agenda is. I truly do believe that a lot of people that are pushing the agenda that we could call the darker side, if you will, honestly feel that they are doing what is right. They truly, truly believe it, because how else can they look at themselves in the mirror? They can't, right? And we've got to realize that everybody has a choice. Everybody's here for soul's growth. Everybody's here for their awakening. And some individuals are on that darker path at this moment in time as part of their own spiritual journey. So it's a really fascinating conversation if you start to look at, well, okay, you look at someone like Trudeau and you recognize that he was cultivated, he was brought through, the economic forum, the world, what was that? What's the World
Economic Forum? Yeah.
Right. They developed, they cultivated, as they have cultivated other leaders in this country. If we were spoon-fed from the time that we were brought onto this planet to a certain belief system, right? If we were spoon-fed by that and continued and were surrounded by people who truly believed it, who's to say where any one of us would be right now?
Right.
Mhm. Rishi Sunak is also the Prime Minister of the UK. He went through the World Economic Forum as well. So there's lots of them popping up. And
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, but they're becoming less and less popular because the World Economic Forum is, and the people going to their meetings is because they're getting questioned now. Not
Yes.
so much in Canada, but over here in the UK. I think in the European Union as well, they're starting to be questioned of what were you
Yeah.
doing over there and what was that conversation all about. But I think more people are waking up to that fact, and some of the things that the European Union has done recently. You've got nation states who I think it's is it €22,000 if you don't accept an immigrant coming from North Africa, you have to pay per head for each one that you don't accept. And I think the Polish and the Swedish are kicking up over that and refusing to be part of that. So and that comes in with all sorts of implications because I think human beings should be living on this planet as human beings. And
Yes.
we've been, and you're so right about us being polarized and to argue about,
Yeah.
well, they're not from our culture. Who cares? But it's what is culture anyway anymore? That is all being destroyed, which is why this whole agenda used to be called cultural Marxism. It used to be the destruction of your way of life.
Yeah.
And I personally feel that we are starting to reevaluate what it is to be human beings. And when I go to Germany, I want to go and experience Germany. I want to go and experience parts of America. I want to experience. I don't want it all to be homogenized and all the same. I think that's an enormous mistake because you lack diversity there. But I do feel that these people are backing off a bit in some respects because people are questioning it, but we're just not seeing that in the mainstream media. And
We won't.
no,
I mean,
we
let's
won't.
just
Never.
accept we won't. We were not going to see this in the mainstream media. I think really a fascinating thing. I just want to add this in there, and anything that I say, take it left, right, in the center. Don't take it at all. It doesn't matter. Everybody's entitled to what they think and say and feel, and just be respectful. That's what I think for all of it. I think we practice that here because I'm sure we all don't always agree with one another, although I think we do fairly well. But this is what I find fascinating. This is something I just want to throw out there in the, what is it, just under 7 minutes that we have left. If we are creators of our reality, which I believe we are, when I believe you guys agree with that, we are all creating this reality. We are all contributing, right? We're all creating. Then isn't it fascinating how the written word that has existed on this planet for a very long time and all of these sci-fi things, if you look back onto all the best-selling sci-fi novels, all the stuff that's out there, seem to be, as you said, a blueprint for what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And my fascination with how we create is, have we inadvertently created this blueprint through all of these practices of our imagination that we then put into black and white, that then people then read and envision and see or feel or go on the journey with? And you're talking with some of these books that have been around for eons, millions upon millions upon millions of people have read these books and gone on these journeys. Is it so far reaching to think that in some way it has woven into the creation of what it is that we're seeing today? And if that is true, I look at it as a fascinating thing of like, well, what if we started to create in the direction we want? What if authors started writing books about the creation of utopia, about the connection of humanity, about peace and what that looks like? What if, that's conscious music, as we talked about, Peter and Isabel, as you know, it's like, what if we can truly start to generate an image that millions and billions of people then envision and see? Because I believe there's some truth to this. As crazy as it sounds, and believe me, I'm used to sounding crazy, I believe there's truth to it.
It makes sense. If everything is energy, then your thought and your words have an impact on everything around you. That feeds the collective consciousness, right? And with that, we are directing the path. And I think that's why we're seeing the extreme between dark and light right now. That's why you're saying we see people talking about soul on corporate stages. And then you see government sending out stuff. If your philosophy doesn't align with us, we can come after you. That is the extremes. And we see it. The more the darker side will continue to push, the more you see the rising of the light. And coming back to what you said very early on, I do not believe that when we ascend into higher consciousness, that we do need the darkness to understand the light. I think that is just part of the people who are pretty much still asleep, who don't know what it feels like to have gratitude, who don't know what it feels like within their body to have love and peace, to be all that. They won't be able to discover it unless they have the opposite, the dualism. And that's what we're learning here. And the more we transcend, the more we understand what it feels like and what it looks like on all levels of our existence, right?
You got to put that into your thought process of, if you were, say, a jinn, or what some people call the archon, or whatever you want to call it, a darker entity, what would you do to keep your existence going? You would say, well, you need me. So I think the expression says the best thing the devil ever did was make people not believe in him. You know, it's like, it's there, and it's up to you to choose that, whether you're going to be in that darker energy or not. And I think you're right. I don't think we need it to realize our higher spiritual tuning in, as it were. But going back to Deborah's point as well, we've been brought up on Star Wars, which is the dark force, the negative side of the force, and the positive side of the force. And the positive side of the force is always on the back foot, always chasing and trying to find ways around it. We've been conditioned to be like that. And that's what I find amazing, was since I stand up in a room and start to really put my heart out into a room, things change. And you go, well, that's interesting. Let's try that in a political arena. And you get up and you do that. But I couldn't do it at a sustained level in the political arena because of the negative entities that are filling those rooms up. And
well, you wouldn't be allowed to. You'd be silenced very quickly.
Yeah,
very quickly. But it's interesting to think, I don't even want to go down that road, because what you're doing is you're immersing yourself in that negativity. So I feel that you're so right, both of you, to actually create this. We need to be creating it for ourselves and together, which is what this is all about, is to coming together as a community. And I see the grass shoots of that, the green shoots of that coming through with new films that are coming out. When you see 5, 6, 7 production companies in front of the film, that means it's not Hollywood. That means it's all these little companies around the world putting this together. The actors are not taking the big wages anymore. They're taking a cut from the processes. That is all being shared out of all the people who've invested into the little production companies. And that's a new way. And they're trying to get their servers now outside of the mainstream so that they can stream and run things for themselves. That's what's coming out of the film industry. I feel the same will be coming out of the music industry and all the entertainment industries, like books and things like that. We start creating this stuff. We start making it, putting it out into the world, and we become the bigger entity than the dark force that you can look at it and go, well, it's not for me.
How can people join us to start making this stuff? Because we're almost at a minute. We're here, we're open. So how can people join us? Come on.
First of all, check out New Earth. What is it? newearthcc.org. I almost said it. Brain fart. newearthcc.org, our website. Check it out. Click around. There's all the buttons for which group you can join, where we're at on social media. Very easily made accessible. So join us there with the discussions. Like, those are discussions we want to continue to have, because in 30 minutes,
consciousmusiccollective.com. And was it Conscious Music for the People on Facebook? There's a little
Conscious Music Collective will take you there. .com, newearthcc.org. Guys, we could go on and on. I know we could. I love you both so much.
I love you too.
Remember, everybody, peace and love really is the answer, and together we rise.
That's right.
Hey.
Have a great day, everyone.